No, we're not always going to agree on politics. I don't think that's going to be possible. For all the talk there is about coming together and let's unify everybody, we just have different opinions about politics, and you probably have different opinions with people in your church, with your family members, and you might actually be kind of dreading the holidays because you're going to have some family over and they're going to have difference of opinions about politics, and you're just afraid how it's going to go. So what I want to do today is I want to give you 4 tips, 4 things to remember. And if you remember these things, they will help you to deal with people who have different political ideas and even passionately different political ideas than you have. So our political views come from our worldview. They are more than just opinions. If they were just opinions, we could say, hey, it's no big deal. You think differently than I do, but that's okay. But they're not just opinions. They actually come from our deep-seated worldviews. Now, for me, I consider myself a political conservative because I am a conservative Christian. My beliefs about the Bible and my beliefs about what God would have us to do affect every area of my life, and politics is one of those areas. I can't divorce what I think about politics from my Christian worldview because it permeates everything, and that's the way it should be. And so if you don't have the same political opinions I do, you might be coming from a little bit of a different worldview that I am. And I understand that. Obviously, we each think we're right, but we need to understand it's not just that, I chose this party, I chose this opinion, and so don't argue with me about it. But it comes from something that is so deeply entrenched in each of us, our worldview, and that's something that is not easily changed. And as a matter of fact, that's what this YouTube channel is about. I try to help you to understand what you believe and why you believe it and how it affects what you do, because everything we believe affects what we do. It affects how we vote. It affects our political views. It affects everything. Now, right now, we live in a very politically divided culture because if you're watching this video about the time I post it, we have just finished the 2020 election and the news outlets are claiming that Biden won. Biden's claiming that he won. Trump's saying that there was fraud. So we have all this going on. It's a divided nation, but that's going to happen when we are passionate about the things that we believe. There's nothing that we can really do about that because it comes from our worldviews deep inside us. Now, before I give you these 4 tips that I think will help you to understand how to deal with people who see politics differently than you do, I just want to help you understand that Jesus had the same thing going on in his life. I want to read this to you. It's from Luke chapter 6, verse 12 to 16. Jesus is gathering his disciples together. It says, now it came to pass in those days that he went out to the mountain to pray and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12 men whom he named disciples, whom he named apostles. Simon, this is the list, Simon whom he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called the Zealot, Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who also became a traitor. So Matthew and Simon. Now we know Simon Peter, this is a different Simon. Matthew was a tax collector. A tax collector was someone who worked for the Roman government, the oppressive Roman government, and exacted taxes from the Jews. And oftentimes tax collectors were known for stealing, kind of like Zacchaeus we read about later. They were known for stealing from things, and for goodness sakes, they worked for the Roman Empire. And that was the enemy of the Jews. And Jesus chose Matthew, who most Jews would probably think sold out to the Romans. Jesus chose him to be one of his disciples, one of his apostles. But not only did he choose Matthew, he chose Simon the Zealot. Now, the Zealots were like the militia, the Jewish militia, the patriots, the ones who say, we are going to overthrow the Roman Empire. We're going to get our arms. We're going to fight against the Roman Empire. And can you imagine what the campfire conversations were probably like with Jesus and the apostles sitting around? Maybe Jesus went off to pray and the disciples probably should have been praying with him, but they weren't. And they were sitting around, they were talking about things. And all of a sudden, Simon says something like, boy, we need to be overthrowing the Romans. And here's Matthew sitting over there saying, don't talk like that, Simon. because I'm going to lose my job if somebody overhears you talking like that, because I side with the Romans on this and I'm helping the Romans. And so can you imagine, excuse me, what would have happened in those conversations? And I think, why would Jesus choose two so totally politically different people like that? Why would they follow Jesus? Well, Matthew might have thought, well, Jesus come in talking about peace, and I want peace. I want peace because it allows me to keep my job, right? But Simon might have been saying, I've heard this guy Jesus talk about overthrowing the Roman Empire, and boy, that's my game. I'm all in on that. And so you had these two very different people that have come together from two totally different positions. It's almost like having the campaign managers for Biden and Trump in your church. So today I want to give you 4 tips, 4 things to remember that I think will help you. If you remember these things, I think that they will help you to get along with other people. Just like Simon and Matthew probably had to figure some of this stuff out for themselves. 4 things I'm going to give you that I think will help you as you try to navigate your relationships with these people who don't see politics the same way that you do. Here's the first one. Remember that we are all made in the image of God. Every single person is made in the image of God. If you're Republican, you're made in the image of God. If you're Democrat, you're made in the image of God. If you're Libertarian, Green Party, Independent, whatever you are made in the image of God. That is where we get our value. Not from political party, but from God. Jesus didn't die only for one political party. He died for all mankind. He died for Matthew, who could be saved. He died for Simon, who could be saved. So I assume that would also go for Democrat, Republicans, Libertarians, you name it. Tea Party, I don't know if there's any Tea Party around anymore. Whoever, we are all made in the image of God. So just remember that as you have these conversations, this person I'm talking to that thinks so differently politically than I do, that person has been made in the image of God. That person is also important. So that's the first tip that we should remember. The second tip that we should remember is that our relationships are more important than our political views. Notice I did not say that our relationships are more important than the truth. That's not what I said. I said they are more important than political views. I did not say that relationships are more important than policies. There are very important policies out there. But what I'm saying is this: sometimes we don't need to discuss politics because we need to be building relationships. Maybe when you meet together at Thanksgiving or at Christmas with your family, when you're meeting together as a church, you have people of different opinions. Maybe we don't need to be discussing some things. Maybe there's some people with whom we should just say, you know what, we're not going to talk about this because we want to build our relationship. I'm not saying, remember, that you should say, oh, well, your opinion's okay. It's good. Or, okay, whatever. These things don't matter. No, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying sometimes with some people, we don't need to be talking about things because it's not going to convince them anyway, which really leads us to the third tip that I think we should remember, and that is that the gospel is more important than political views. The gospel is more important than political views. If you listen to me long enough to my preaching, or you listen to my videos on my channel here, you're going to find out that there are some issues that I am very passionate about that we might call political issues, but actually I think they're biblical and moral issues, but they've been put into the political realm. I'm very passionate about those. I'm not saying that I just need to scrap all that because I just want to have a big gospel fest. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that there are some people that I might not be able to talk with about those things because I'm trying to reach them with the gospel. I can talk about immigration to somebody, and if we disagree, I'm going to destroy that relationship and not be able to share the gospel with them. I might talk about abortion, and I can talk about that outside of biblical realms. We can talk about that with medical terminology and with common sense, things like that. But sometimes we tend to make some of these things the only thing that we're talking about, and we should talk about them. But sometimes we make those the only thing that we're talking about when we actually need to be trying to give the gospel with people, and we just are making enemies. If you're watching this video and you are an unbeliever, I don't expect for you to agree with me on everything that I believe politically, because like I said, my political views are informed from my Christian views. I might argue with you about some things because we should be coming from the same worldview, which should then affect everything that we do. So if you're an unbeliever, we're just going to see things differently. And I want to have a conversation with you about the gospel. We can talk about some of the other things, but I don't want to destroy my opportunity to share the gospel, because the gospel is more important than political views. And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't stand up for things that are right. We always should. But the gospel is more important. We can have friendly discussions on Supreme Court nominees, on taxes, on different things like that. But we need to make sure we're not ruining opportunities to give the gospel to other people. So, but I think, like I said, political things are very, very important. I think Christians should be involved in politics. I'm not saying you got to choose politics or the gospel. I'm not saying that at all. I think Christians should be involved in politics. I think we should vote. I think Christians should run for office. As a matter of fact, I recently made a video, and you can find a link to it in the description here, about why Christians should be involved in politics. I think that we should be involved in politics. So you can check that out if you want to. Some Christians might need to make a career out of it. The government is God's institution for civil matters. We should be involved, but sometime we need to take our thoughts and set them aside so we can reach people with the gospel and then go pick them up again when we need to. Now for the fourth tip. If you remember this, it will help you. And here it is. Political parties are temporary. This whole thing, this whole counting issue we have right now, and the ballot issue, and in my mind I go back to 2000 when we had the whole Bush versus Gore situation and the hanging chads. And you remember that if you're old like me, you remember all those kinds of things. And all that's behind us now. And here we are 20 years later, and we're in what almost seems like another one of those situations. But one day, all that's going to be behind us. One day, we're not going to have to worry about those things anymore. All this is temporary. Jesus said in John 18:36, my kingdom is not of this world. This is when he was going before Pilate. He says, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here. All this is temporary. It's fun. It's exciting. I love to watch politics. I love to sit up and watch the debates. I love to watch the State of the Union addresses. I love to stay up on election night and watch, and hopefully we get the returns back so we know who won. I love to do all that, and I cheer sometime, and I get mad sometime because I want my government to be run according to a biblical worldview as much as possible. So I'm passionately interested in this, but all of this is temporary. And we can destroy relationships with people over something that is temporary, and I don't think that's always a good idea. Sometimes we do have to stand up, especially when we're dealing with other Christians. We have to say, look, you've got to stand for things that are right. You've got to stand for the lives of these little babies who aren't giving a chance of being born. That is not a political issue. That is a moral issue, but has become a political issue also. We need to stand up for things like gender and marriage, things like that God made. We need to stand up for these kinds of things. But all of this political talking is temporary. It is not going to be here forever, because one day Jesus is going to set up a new kingdom. God's going to make a new heaven, a new earth, and we're not going to have to worry about this stuff anymore. So all this is temporary. Think about that when you're having these disagreements with people. Let me run through these one more time with you. Remember these things. Remember, we are all made in the image of God. Remember that relationships are more important than political views. Number 3, the gospel is more important than political views. And number 4, political parties are temporary. What we believe affects how we act. That's what my YouTube channel is about. If you believe these things, if you believe we're all made in the image of God, and that some things are more important than politics, if you really believe that, it will affect the relationships that you have with the people who see things differently than you do, and I'm sure you have plenty of them in your life. Well, if this has helped you and you want to see more videos like this that will help you to live according to the beliefs that you have, hit subscribe. I'd love to have you as part of my channel. God bless you, everyone.